This is WCN, the Whole Care Network. You talk, we listen. Content presented on the following podcast is for information purposes only. Views and opinions expressed during this podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent views of the Whole Care Network. Always consult your physician for medical and fitness advice, and always consult your attorney for legal advice. And thank you for listening to the Whole Care Network.
Have you ever met anybody that has caregiving on their bucket list of things to do in life?
Beyond caregiving, how do we care?
We also have to care for ourselves.
How do we treat friends, family, strangers we meet?
Forget it.
How do we heal? The physical, social, financial, spiritual.
Hello.
By creating healing ties. Tying it all together like a bow tie. With your host, Christopher McClellan, the bow tie guy.
Well, greetings, everyone. It's Christopher McClellan, the bow tie guy, for another episode of Healing Ties 2.0. Thanks for joining us today. You know, on Healing Ties, we are all about sharing stories and resources because we believe that it's through story sharing where diversity meets the road to collaborate on a common cause. And our common cause is supporting caregivers before, during, and after caregiving ends. And as you know, we're celebrating National Family Caregivers Month with the reboot of Healing Ties 2.0 podcast and the soft launch of our new Whole Care Network website. So when you get a chance, please visit our new website at thewholecarenetwork.com, where you'll get the opportunity to meet Bo, because Bo ties things together on the Whole Care Network. During our soft launch, we'll be asking our listeners to provide us with feedback on the new site so we can continue to build our site where you can easily find your favorite podcast, favorite blogs, and videos. Oh, and by the way, you'll be able to search content on the Whole Care Network via our 4 pillars of care: physical, social, financial, and spiritual health. I am looking forward to receiving your feedback on our new website. Well, enough from me. My guest today is author and family caregiving expert, Stephanie Erickson. Stephanie earned a master's degree in social work and is a certified Alzheimer's disease treatment specialist. Stephanie has an impressive resume of supporting caregivers all throughout North America and is the author of Plan for Aging Well. Stephanie, welcome to Healing Ties 2.0. It's great to visit with you today.
Thank you, Christopher. And just when you were doing that opening, you're speaking my language. You know, those 4 pillars you talked about. So I'm really happy to be
thank
on.
you. And you know, I'm excited to have you. It's a reboot of our Healing Ties podcast, and our, you know, it really does come down to those 4 pillars, don't you think?
It does. And this is one of the reasons why I wrote the book, is that I don't think those 4 pillars are integrated into our healthcare system. That's the problem, not for I'll just use the term patient, and certainly not for the caregivers either. And in order for someone to really achieve optimal functioning, peace, happiness, health, solid contentment, you know, anything that makes them feel good, we need to look at the whole person. And our healthcare system just really does not do that. So that's a lot of what I discuss in my book.
Well, and that's why we've connected so well in our previous conversations, and to have you on today to go live with our discussion and, you know, to talk about, there's so many areas we can jump into, but let's talk about the concept of why it's important to create a team in care.
Yeah. So the chapter that in my book, it's called Team Caregiving. But let me just back off for a second, because before we went live, Christopher, we were talking about how you were telling me, oh, your assistant was great as we were setting this up. And I was saying, yes, it's new that I have an assistant. I cannot tell you for how many years I've been struggling to keep up with minutia tasks, because as a clinician, a lot of my work I'm with families, and it's all the little things that divide my attention. And then I can't grow my business. I can't pursue other things because I'm, stuck with, emailing headshots and things like this, which takes up time, right? So finally, I hired a virtual assistant, and it has been a lifesaver. And I think it's something that I struggle with, even though I recommend people in terms of concept of team caregiving, reach out and bring someone else in. But then I wasn't even doing it myself, right? This is like parallel process with what caregivers go through, is we know we're supposed to ask for help, and then we don't. So part of it is just getting that help for ourselves.
Yeah, good. One of my longstanding mottos have been, asking for help is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. But sometimes we just can't find that strength to do it.
Well, because we all think, I personally think that no one can do anything as good as I can. Ask my husband, he'll tell you, right? I'm convinced that my way is the way to do it. And so what I did, and what I would recommend for caregivers, is with my assistant, Jessie, what I said to her was, I'll pay you for 2 weeks of work. Okay. And let's just see how it goes. I'm going to give you a list of the things I want you to do and try it out, because she needs time to learn too. I can't judge right away if she's the right fit. I mean, I'm telling you, within like 3 hours, I was like, okay, I just struck gold. But I think that's something that caregivers can take away too, is it doesn't have to be a forever decision. Right. It can just be an openness to, let me try this for a short period of time, giving them time to adjust, giving me time to adjust, and then let's see where this goes. And most of the time, it's probably going to work out. Because
one thing that we know that's consistent about caregiving is there's always change. And we have to be somewhat prepared for something that's going to happen at a moment's notice. But when you have that person in the background, that reliable source that you can count on, it's going to make your day just a little bit easier.
Yeah, for sure. And just to expand on the team caregiving concept, I was telling you about myself and an assistant, which relates. But in the concept in my book of team caregiving, it's about the patient and the caregiver working together with all of the healthcare professionals, right, all of the family, all of the friends, financial advisors, legal individuals. I mean, everybody working together to meet the expectations and the vision of whatever it is that the patient wants. Not forgetting that it's not just the quote unquote patient, it's also the caregiver who needs the equivalent amount of support, attention, care, in order for the plan to work, because we can't just focus on the patient without taking care of the people who are supposed to be helping that person.
Now, I always like to use a sports analogy when it comes to teams. And since you're in Canada, I'm going to say hockey instead of baseball. The most successful teams can't have all superstars. They have to have a variety of talents and skills. And that's the same type of team that caregivers need. We've got your doctors, you've got all the professionals, but there are people in and around your network, family and friends, that bring a variety of talents and skills to the team that you can utilize. For instance, you've got a favorite uncle. Well, he's not much of a conversationalist, but he certainly can cook a good meal. Let's say, okay, yes, I would love for you to come and cook a meal. But just finding that comfort and reaching out and saying it's okay to get help.
First of all, hockey doesn't mean anything to me because I'm from California, so whatever. But I'm a football girl, and it's hysterical you just brought up a sports analogy, because my team caregiving chapter opens with a description of football. I'm huge into football, and I make the comparison of how successful football teams work, and that you can't have one superstar, because if your star running back gets injured, well, then now what are you going to do? You have to have exactly. So you need to be able to have all the different team members. So you're speaking my language when you talk about team analogy. The other thing, though, I think it's really important to consider is that the caregiver, we need to be very careful when asking them to take on particular tasks, or the uncle or whoever it might be, making sure that what they're taking on is something that's in their wheelhouse, it's their skill set, they are open and wanting to do it, and then get a very specified length of time that they can commit to whatever it would be. So if it's that uncle who's a great cook, again, let's just give him 4 meals. Say, okay, Uncle John, can you please prepare 4 meals for me over the next month? And then let's reevaluate and see how it goes. So that people, I think, would be more willing to jump in and assist if they don't assume that it's a long-term commitment and can kind of get their feet wet first.
And having those clearly defined roles, because I think it's safe to say that most people want to help, but they want to help within their wheelhouse. And when you have those clearly defined roles, it kind of makes the team flow a lot more cohesively.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I know for my sister and I, when it comes to our parents, I mean, our dad is now passed away. And anyways, I talk about that in my book too, how that could have been a nightmare because things were not in place despite my profession and everything I've asked him to do. He never did it. And so when he died, we were like, okay, what do we do? But my sister and I knew enough to know each other's skill set. So my skill set is organization, make sure we close all the accounts and getting the bills paid and all that kind of stuff. And my sister is really creative and she needs to pour her feelings into a creative outlet. I need to pour mine into, I'm going to structure and control everything I can. So we respected each other's skill set and supported each other in doing those tasks. And it's really important because if you want people to follow through, they have to be comfortable with what you're asking them to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, we have to talk about, when we talk about family, we have to always talk about an area of family that I think all of us have, family baggage. How do we leave?
Not me.
That's good. How do we leave family baggage at the door when we're caring for a sick relative or parent?
I don't think you can leave it at the door, Christopher, because if we go in thinking that we're going to leave it at the door, it's never going to work. I think it's about understanding what it is, understanding our role and the contribution to those dynamics between us and those family members, understanding that person's role, responsibility, contribution to the dynamics, and then setting up our boundaries within that. Because if we just try and pretend it's not there, like you said, and leave it at the door, it will creep up. So I think it's more about acknowledging and then establishing those boundaries so that anytime we get caught up or triggered, we can go backwards and reflect.
And then it reminds us to kind of what our tasks are and to focus on the health issue at hand. And there's always an opportunity down the road to go and revisit some of those issues, those family issues, if needed. But when we're focused on the care and commitment of our, and I'll just use a generic term, care partner, then it really makes everybody's situation just a little bit easier.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you will always revisit, and I don't know though that you necessarily need to rehash because people are who they are, right? We all have our triggers, we all have our ways of approaching things, we all do things differently. So again, it's kind of like understanding who each character is in our family grouping and then allowing them to be who they are and then managing our own expectations and our own reactions to who that person is, because we will never change anybody. I mean, I can barely make my dog do something. Definitely can't make my kids do something. I mean, the chances of me making my stepdad do something are like none, right? So,
but it's having that self-awareness going in is a very good thing. I'd be interested in your response to this. I personally believe, through my experience, that the main role of a caregiver is that of an advocacy. And if you're not used to being an advocate, how do you effectively advocate through the healthcare system?
Well, hopefully as an advocate, the first thing is that you know what your loved one actually wants. Because I think part of what's hard about advocacy is that we're not quite sure what we're asking for because we don't know exactly what that person wanted. They haven't necessarily told us what their value system is clearly, or their expectations about care and support and how they want it to be delivered. So then that makes our role harder because we don't feel as confident. So step one is actually understanding what it is we're trying to do. And the thing that I always say to people is, no one is above you. I don't care if they have an MD after their name or an LCSW or whatever it is. No one is above you. We are all the same. We're all on the same playing field. yes, we should respect and listen to all the disciplines and their expertise in understanding like a disease area or whatever it might be. But at the end of the day, it is your life. That's always something to think about. It's your life. Don't feel bad. You don't need to apologize. When you have time, you take it. It is your life. It's okay to speak up.
I often say when I consulting with caregivers, as an advocate, I had to learn the hard way that I was speaking on behalf of my partner, my care partner, and that if I didn't know exactly what he wanted, how would I be able to advocate appropriately for him? And isn't it kind of funny how it all comes down to just active communication between people?
It really is that basic, right? So I think that's how we have to live life in general, is that whatever works for us in communication in different environments can apply to almost every single situation. So, when we're at home with our families, we might lose our cool. I definitely raise my voice to my kids. I definitely speak in a rude tone to them. And I would never do that to you, Christopher. I would never do that to one of my clients. You know what I mean? So I should be learning from my relationship with my children of how to then communicate in the world outside of me. But like you were to go back earlier, a lot of it's about insight, awareness, and then going, okay, now I see what I'm doing. How can I transfer this skill here? How can I transfer this there? And at the end, it really is just about appreciating someone else's expertise, being open and listening, and at the same time, being open to hearing.
Hearing is an unused communication skill at times.
We have to listen and never underestimate positive reinforcement and gratitude towards people, even if they're acting the way that you would hope they would as a professional. If we lead with gratitude and appreciation, sometimes that kind of makes it a bit easier.
Stephanie, let's take a short break here. And when we come back, I want to ask you about a fun fact that you'd like to share with our listeners about you. So I'm going to kind of put you on the spot when we come back. So you're listening to Healing Ties on the Whole Care Network. We'll be right back.
I'm Leanne Biafora with Beacon Advocates. Please join me in listening to my conversation with Chris McCullen with Healing Ties, where we talk about how patient advocates improve the cancer care experience.
Well, welcome back, everybody. I'm having a delightful conversation with Stephanie Erickson. And Stephanie, before the break, I kind of queued you up on a fun fact about yourself that you'd like to share with our listeners. So the microphone is yours.
Excellent. Let's see. Well, my passion, my go-to thing for everything, for my full holistic satisfaction. So I mean my physical satisfaction, my spiritual, my emotional fulfillment is the flying trapeze.
Oh, my goodness.
The one in the circus where you swing on the bar, you let go, someone catches you. That's my thing. And I train twice a week and I'm super into it. In my head, I'm like Cirque du Soleil, but I'm really not Cirque du Soleil. But in my head, I'm like amazing.
The trapeze. Now, that is awesome. I don't think I've ever talked to anybody that's had that in their background.
Yeah, we're a small, pretty nuts community, to be honest with you. Only crazy people would do it.
But I would imagine that helps, as we talked earlier in the podcast about our mind, body, and spirit, that you really have to concentrate to do something like that.
Yeah, well, obviously physically it's like incredibly demanding. So it takes a lot of strength. So just that part, yes, there's great health benefits. There's the community, there's a socialization. So you have all of that benefits for the emotional stuff. And for me, I have an anxiety disorder. I have a generalized anxiety disorder. And funny enough, it actually helps me manage my anxiety because it challenges me. It makes me step outside my comfort zone all the time and start to rely on myself and my instinct and my gut reactions and move away from overthinking and controlling. So it's been incredibly healing for me.
I would like to say, I think it's you stepping into your comfort zone, not out of your comfort zone.
Ooh, I might start to use that. Thank you.
Well, that was given to me one time when I said something like so.
Paying it forward.
I'm paying it forward, but it's stepping into your comfort zone. That's what we're doing. So goodness, I'm just having a delightful time with you today, but unfortunately, we just got a couple of minutes left. Stephanie, let our listeners know how they can be in contact with you, and I'd like to invite you back for another episode of Healing Ties.
I'm happy to come back anytime. You can find my book, Plan for Aging Well, on Amazon. So you search my name, Stephanie Erickson, and that's a CK in the last name. Plan for Aging Well is the title of the book. And you can also book an online video consultation with me about any caregiving issues. And you can find me on my website, stephanieerickson.ca, and book through a calendar system there if you're interested.
And your website is pretty awesome because I was all over it the last couple of days preparing for it. I hope our new website is as easy to maneuver as yours are. So, but Stephanie, I can't thank you enough for joining me today. And you are certainly someone who is creating healing ties by your words, actions, and deeds. It is a real pleasure to be in touch with you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, that does it for this episode of Healing Ties 2.0. It's really great to be back on the air with Healing Ties. And as you know, I'm your host, Christopher McClellan. I'm creating a life to love after caregiving ends by sharing stories, resources, and being with awesome people like Stephanie Erickson. Healing Ties is a part of the Whole Care Network. Check out our new website where you'll get a chance to meet Bo. We'll see you for another episode of Healing Ties real soon. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.
Ciao.
This is WCN, the Whole Care Network. You talk, we listen.